This is the second year that we've had the privilege to have Ariel Sholklapper as our Rabbinic intern. Name, as Ariel's father is Ashkenazic, but his mother and her family are from Iran via Israel. In that regard, Ariel brings together within his own worldview a disparity, a diversity of Jewish experiences. Ariel Sholklapper, our teacher.
The rabbi named Zushia, he died and he went to stand before heaven, before God in heaven. And before it was his turn, he started to think to himself how little he had done. Imagine, what's God going to ask me? Why weren't you Moses? Why weren't you Solomon? Or why weren't you David? But when God appeared, the rabbi was surprised at what God asked him. He simply asked, "Why weren't you Zushia?" Wonderful story from Buber's Tales of Hasidim. This is in the early, he wrote 2 books of this. They're very good stories, actually. Rabbi Spitz has them on his shelf. They're at the top shelf. I thought it was pretty... You know, if you go to a bar, the top shelf is the best stuff. So Buber is up top. That's where his stories sit on Rabbi Spitz's shelves. And in reflecting on Toldot, I thought, this narrative is somewhat mysterious. There's a piece in the middle of the section where the Gerarites and Avimelech. And Yitzchak is kicked out of the Gerarites area because he's too wealthy. And then something strange happens. Avimelech and his 2 messengers start approaching Yitzchak. And Yitzchak is thinking, he asks them, Madua batem elai? Why'd you come to me? He's right to ask this question. V'atem sinetem oti, v'tishlechuni meitchem. Don't you guys hate me? Didn't you just kick me out of your area? You just kicked me out of your land. V'yamru, and they responded to him, Ra'o ra'inu, ki haya Adonai imach. We surely saw that God is with you. Now, you guys have been training with Rabbi Spitz for years and years now, so I know that it's obvious to you guys that when there's a repetition in the words Ra'o ra'inu, the rabbis are going to have to say something about it. Rashi brings forward an interesting interpretation where he says the first Ra'o refers to Avraham. They saw the godliness in Avraham. And Ra'inu means that they saw actually also the godliness in Yitzchak, a distinct godliness, different. These are different qualities they saw, but something that ties them both together. That kind of seems obvious. If you think about it, they're both connected to God. But it's not really that obvious when you pause and think about it. Because Avraham and Yitzchak are sort of opposite. They're not the same guy. They do not lead with the same principles. Yeah, their family, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, we say. But these guys couldn't have led in different ways. Now, I want to pause and I want to bring a little Zoharic conception. I think will frame what I want to draw the distinction of. In the Zohar, they have sfirot. You guys have also learned this with Rabbi Spitz, I'm sure. The sfirot are set up like a chart, where in the top, there's a sfira, which is Ein Sof. These are all supposed to be representations of God's qualities. The Ein Sof is the top. Actually, that's the kind of godliness that none of us can even understand. And right below, there's actually not one sphira, but two sphirot. And they're opposites of each other, but they complement one another. And those two sphirot are chesed, and I may be getting the sides of which side of the chart is wrong, are chesed and gevura. Chesed is loving kindness, and gevura is discipline. Those are opposite features of God, but they complement one another. Avraham is chesed, as understood by the Zohar and by our rabbis, and Yitzchak is gevura. He's discipline. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Avraham, he has a tent, it's open in all directions. He runs out to go greet his visitors. Vayashkem baboker, he wakes up early, he's vigorous. He's a wanderer. He's the consummate wanderer. He goes from Babylonia to Syria, to Israel, to Egypt, back to Israel, all throughout Israel. He doesn't stay put, the guy. He's also bold, and he's daring. He takes risks. For God's sake, the guy circumcised himself. And I mean that with the pun intended. He's charismatic. He's magnetic. People come to him. They flock to him. He converted the masses. His life is an adventure. And by the end of his life, Avraham has many kids from multiple women. He represents chesed because his love is boundless. Chesed is loving kindness. It's boundless love. He does that boldly and loudly. That's godly. Yitzchak, on the other hand, he's quiet. He has 2 kids from the same woman. He never travels. He never leaves the land of Israel even. When he does so begrudgingly. He didn't leave Gerar because he felt it was the time to move on. He left Gerar because they kicked him out. He's a farmer. He's actually a polar opposite of Avraham. Avraham is a nomad. He doesn't farm. Maybe he sees to the flocks, but he doesn't farm. There's no wild midrashim, no outlandish midrash about Yitzchak smashing his father's idols, and there's no Lech Lecha story, because that's not him. That's not who he is. When the going gets tough, Yitzchak stays quiet. He stays put. He deals with things head on. He's disciplined. He's consistent. He's quiet. He's confident. It's actually his quiet, calm confidence that is what makes him godly. When Avimelech and his men approach Yitzchak, they bring us an insight that stretches back further than the portion we're looking at today. We are each on this earth to be holy reflections of God. And we do that in each our own way. What's remarkable is how different Avraham and Yitzchak are in the qualities and what makes them good leaders, but they're equally reflective of God's self. Neither is more godly than the other. So the question I ask is why is the story, why do we have to laud these 2 men? What is it about these 2 men? And there's a continuation that you'll see next week, of course. But what is it about these 2 men that we can learn from? I think it is that the divine qualities that each one of us have are very different, but still godly. There's a charismatic leader. There's a quiet and powerful leader. There's introverts. There's extroverts. There are people, everybody in between, and all of those are godly. Avimelech and his advisors see that both of them embrace their uniqueness. Neither Abraham obviously wasn't trying to be Yitzchak, but Yitzchak wasn't trying to be his father. He was being himself. That's what made him godly. Rav Zushia, when he came to the world to come, he said, they're going to ask him, why were you not Zushia? So go forth, be leaders the way that you are. Be Isaac if you're Isaac, or Abraham if you're Abraham. Being a blessing and being close to God means that you are yourself to the fullest. You don't emulate other people. But our challenge is that we have a part of our mind, the Buddhists call it the comparative mind. And we all know this to be true. And that's actually pretty helpful. It helps us differentiate between hot and cold, good and bad. But sometimes that comparative mind gets us in trouble. Not only will we compare others, we end up comparing ourselves. That's why the story of Abraham and Yitzchak and their difference is so important. The contrast of their styles reminds us that difference is not only natural, but it's good. When we use our comparative mind and it gets out of control, we can fall into a trap. It's a dangerous trap. Not only do we start to compare ourselves to others, we start to try to be someone else. Or what we're really saying when we're trying to be someone else is we're saying, my qualities are not good enough. I'm not godly enough. That's the danger of using our comparative mind that way. We need to rediscover over and over throughout time, because it changes, what our godly qualities are. We need to nurture those. We need to find what our uniqueness is. And don't compare yourself to other people. The world only needs one of them. But the world also needs one of you. We need one Phyllis, one Rabbi Spitz, one Bob Sklar, one Terry Ginsburg. That's it, only one. We only need one of those, but we need you to be fully you. The stories of our ancestors help us learn that we really must push ourselves. We push away the tendency to compare ourselves to others. Own who you are. Be you. We need you to be you. God is asking you to be you. Shabbat Shalom.